abuser who she willingly allowed back into her life, she goes ahead and decides to abort his baby, right? She has this right. I would never deny her this right, but we'll get to that in a second, right? Presumably, she was not dragged kicking and screaming into the Planned Parenthood clinic. According to the beta male himself, and that's what this guy is, a beta male, right? This man was not a part of her life.
Takes nor one to that know of the one, Marcel.
Oh, you bet. Nor that of the kids, yet managed to bring her down to the clinic. I cannot understand how I am meant to believe that the moral, desirable, civilized, God-approved outcome here would be for this woman to carry this man's offspring to term, his DNA, which she demonstrably finds unworthy of her womb compared to that of her abuser. If she had his child, this man would be tied to her and her absentee ex forever. I mean, if a man is taking you to an abortion clinic to abort someone else's kid, he's not your ex. Okay? So it isn't. Why is it the natural way of saying?
How screwed up is your situation, by the way, where your planned baby with your husband, you're now going to abort? I thought they said it was a husband.
No.
She's not even married to this guy?
She's not married to this guy, no.
But they planned the baby.
Oh, yeah.
So you planned a baby with your boyfriend. Honestly, this is going to sound very sexist. This sounds to me like she planned the baby as some sort of a way to get the ex back into her life.
That's one possibility. Alternatively, she planned the baby to keep the new guy in her life, and then the ex was like, bad plan, he'll stay in your life no matter what. It could go either way.
No, I don't think so, because I don't think it's that, because that's too much. That's giving too much credit. Because the idea that then the ex wouldn't have to take her. He would just mention to her, like, you don't have to do that, and she'd just do it. It's probably like she's saying, it's one of these crazy abusive relationships where, where the people, these relationships, you see them on Twitter all the time, where people cheat on each other constantly, and it's only about, like, making the other person jealous. And it's like, oh, here's some lady, some side chick texted the wife of the guy she's fucking, and the wife is texting her back going, like, yeah, when he's done with you, he comes home to me. Like, they don't care at all. It's like that. It's like, oh, you know what? I've been seeing this other guy for a long time. I bet if he got me pregnant, that would really rile up the ex. And then the ex did get riled up because he's like...
Yep, I see it.
And he goes, oh, no, you're not having his baby. And then takes her to... It says, we're going to get it aborted. And the reason she goes is because she's like, I got him back in my life. And as soon as that abortion's over, he's leaving again. And he'll only show up when he wants to control her some more. And that's good enough for her because she'd rather have that than the other guy because she doesn't want that. She wants the fucked up situation.
Right.
She's one of these toxic people who's addicted to, like, I don't hate to use the word drama, so I'll say abuse.
Yeah.
Notice how much agency I gave her?
Yeah.
I'm the sexist here, but realistically, come on.
Yeah, I know, but you laughed at my word choice, but I mean, this really is, this is a clear case. If anybody can be called a beta male, a man who takes care of another man's kids and then his own children are aborted by that same woman, I mean, that is archetypical beta. I mean, that is advanced cuckery.
And if my theory as to this situation is correct, then this guy who she's dating but aborted his kid, he kind of exists solely in her life as sort of someone to take care of her kids and help probably financially. And as terms of a romantic relationship, their entire relationship is just to make the guy she's actually interested in jealous.
Now, this whole situation tells you the pro-life right is living on another planet. I mean, just the fact that man at the clinic was like, listen, son, whatever happens, you do the right thing. He did not do the right thing. He made a lot of mistakes that got him to this point. And this scenario, I mean, the fact that people who are on the pro-life right think that this situation makes the case in any way for the pro-life position for members of the human race, i.e. most of us, who are not emotionally swayed from their conviction by the tears of grown men. That doesn't make me more pro-life. Watching this made me more pro-choice. I mean, this guy would have been in a horrible situation.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because you wish his mother had aborted him.
No.
Because it sounds to me like there's 3 abortions here that should have been taking place a long time ago.
I'm just saying, and literally, if we just observe the situation, and people in the pro-life right will say, well, how can you act like another person, i.e. this fetus, is like a bullet to be dodged, right? How can you say, that this child would have had a bad life? I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, this woman already has multiple bastards, She would have had another one. Okay, she would have had another one. No, listen. She would have had another one. This baby would have had two father figures. He would have had one father figure who gets so little respect that his mother potentially would have aborted his children, and another father figure who is an abusive guy, allegedly, who comes into and out of his life depending on when they want to fuck his mom.
Yeah, or ladle out abuse.
Yeah, or ladle out abuse. All right. I mean, this kid was not even born into a stable family unit. He would have his mother demonstrably didn't want him. His mother's baby daddy didn't want him.
Okay.
And now his father apparently, says he wants him. But as I make the case, in the future, the father would have regretted maybe not the existence of the kid, but he would have wished he never met this woman. We've all seen Back to the Future. If the man doesn't meet the woman, the baby isn't born. So when this man wishes that this woman had never come into his life, that is tantamount to wishing. He'll never say it publicly, and he'll barely admit it to himself, but implicitly, that means that he wishes the kid wasn't born. And then they say, well, of course, the kid wants to live, so we're not talking about 3 people, we're talking about 4. And that's true. Obviously, the kid might prefer to live.
No, you can't understand their position because you're totally coming from different ends of this. You don't look at it the same way. They look at it and they say, this is a soul, and that's what matters, is that you cannot extinguish this soul. What do you mean? The life that is attached to it, whatever. It's a religious thing. It's an ethical thing. You look at it and say, so in 20 years, this kid's going to mug me on the subway and I'm supposed to be happy?
Well, that's the other thing, though.
That's your view, is you're like, well, I'd rather that he wasn't standing here with a knife to my back asking for my wallet when I'm trying to take the train to my NYU lecture or whatever.
Oh, so here's the other thing. Here's the other thing about it. Because when I expressed this view, one person said, well, Marcel, you can't know that this kid is going to have a bad life. You can't know that his parents will regret his birth, even though one of them demonstrably does. You can't know that for sure. That's a hypothetical. But here's the thing about this, especially from conservatives, that logic is absurd. Conservatives have very strong opinions on which children should and shouldn't exist. That's why they have sexual norms. Conservatives don't want teens having, unprotected sex. Conservatives don't like these alternative lifestyles. They say, wait till you're married, wait till you love the person, because they believe there are situations under which children shouldn't be born.
Yes, but they also have other beliefs that trump that.
Yeah, I understand that they don't want that.
We don't want people to commit theft, but we don't support the death penalty for it.
Right, but here's the thing, because that's not where the trick is.
What they would say is this couple should not have had kids, sure. But once then they get pregnant, they should not abort. Because then there's a worse thing than raising a bad kid or raising a kid in a bad situation, which is murdering it.
I agree with that, but that's not what they say. They say, not only is it too late to do anything about it because they're already existing, and that's fait accompli, they say it's also too late to know or feel anything about it. You have all this very valid logic about, how, single-parent households are unstable, how these kids are more likely to commit crimes. They know all these things. Once the child is conceived, suddenly the kid could be the next Einstein. Suddenly, well, maybe there's adoption, and that's totally cool too. And you don't know what's going to happen. But we had pretty good ideas before. What it's like is like violent despot wins the election, right? But they haven't been sworn in yet. And then I say, man, I wish that guy wasn't going to be president. He's going to have a lot of bad policies. And then you have people who say, well, we live in a society, we had free and fair democratic elections, and he won the election. And so, we can't really do anything about it because that would be, uncivilized. And say, okay, but I really wish he wasn't going to be president. I can't do anything about it. Even if I can see that I can't do anything about it, he would be a bad president, and it would be better if he wasn't. And then they say, well, you don't know that. You don't know anything for sure. It's like, but you were opposed to him being president too. You voted against him. You agreed with me that he shouldn't be president. And now that he's won the election, it's one thing to say he should be president in the sense that he won the election and people who win elections ought to achieve their office. But you can't turn around and say all the convictions you had before were just speculation. We live in a world of paralyzing postmodernist uncertainty. We were calling him Hitler, the night before the election. But as soon as he wins the election, well, then maybe he's going to be the next Gandhi. Anything is possible.
There were people who said that. There are definitely Republicans who have said like, "Oh, I was against Obama, blah blah blah," and then he won, and they said, "But he could be great, so we have to." Remember, controversy with Rush Limbaugh was that he said, "I hope he fails," and all these people, including a lot of Republicans, said, "No, we should hope he succeeds because even though we didn't like him and we fought strong and hard against him, he could be a great president, and we should support him anyway."
Oh, but notice that's different. I'm not wishing. Okay, so to take this Rush Limbaugh example back to the kid, that would be like if I wish that when the kid is born, it's like, man, I hope this kid lives a shitty life. I hope he becomes a drug addict and drops out of high school, and I hope that he becomes a violent criminal. I'm not hoping that the kid fails at life. I'm saying he probably will.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. It would be so if Rush Limbaugh were saying Barack Obama's even after Barack Obama wins. It's like, he's going to be a shit president. It's going to be bad, folks. He's going to make this country into a socialist hellhole. He never should have become president. And then Republicans were like, don't say that. He won the election. So now everything we were saying was actually just meaningless.
Yep, I get you.
Right. That would be obscene.
All right. That's enough of this.
Yeah, that's enough of that. Speaking of people who may or may not be murderers, let's talk about Representative Duncan Hunter, whose name is not nearly as cool as it could be. So Duncan Hunter was being asked about Navy SEAL Edward Gallagher, who was on trial for war crimes, including shooting at civilians in Iraq, presumably. Representative Hunter was asked about it during a podcast, and these were Representative Hunter's words. "I was an artillery officer, and we fired hundreds of rounds into Fallujah, killed probably hundreds of civilians, probably killed women and children if there were any left in the city when we invaded. So do I get judged too?" Now, the fact that he said this, I'm not going to say this shows that there's something profoundly sick about America. There's something profoundly sick about the human race in general. Because, yes, actually, Representative Hunter, you do get judged, right? The myopia that is created in modern warfare, but in particular modern warfare with the advent of really artillery pieces, where a man can say publicly he killed possibly hundreds of women and children and then question whether or not he can be judged as a murderer, it almost defies belief, but it makes perfect sense. I almost don't know what to say to it. That's like the thing, I guess, about joining military. I mean, there's a story that we sell people who join in the military, which is that, everything you do in it is justified. And every once in a while, you get people who come home and they join Iraq veterans against the war. And they really, they really feel bad about all things they did. But most of them, they come home and they get upset if you ask them if they killed people, even though that's pretty much their job. Or they talk about how, they didn't personally kill people, or they were mechanics or dentists or military police or whatever. So they weren't even on combat roles, even though their entire job is to facilitate other people killing people.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've reached peak absurdity where artillery operators also think that because they didn't look down the barrel of a gun and trigger on some kid, they're not murderers.
Yeah, and this is specifically about innocent bystanders, civilians. This is not like someone saying, well, in war, they're shooting at you, you shoot back. This is someone saying, oh yeah, I would fire a gun, I killed lots of innocent civilians. What does that make me, a murderer? It's like, yes!
Yes!
Even by the logic, which we don't agree with, of these wars, the official position of the whole project says that unnecessarily killing civilians is a war crime. It's murder. It's outside of your job in a war. It's not like, well, I dropped a bomb on this target and I killed these combatants, but I also got some civilians. That's one of those things where you go, the real hard anti-war people like us would say, well, you still are a murderer. And sort of the generic general would say, well, that's war. That happens. Fog of war. This is like, I'm just walking around wasting civilians. Is that wrong? It's like, yes. That's not your job. That's not even the premise of your job. That's just murder. Duncan Hunter is a murderer. And as Ron Paul pointed out in a great column, these are the things that just go unpunished.
Yeah.
He also pointed out that the real problem is not Duncan Hunter. It's the people who sent Duncan Hunter to go murder people. It's the people who gave Duncan Hunter a gun and then said, go forth and just shoot to your heart's content.
Well, no, he was an artillery operator. I feel like that's important.
Sorry, my
Right.
mistake.